I'm Kim Palmer, and the following video is of my great uncle Gudger Palmer telling his stories about growing up in the Cataloochee Valley that's now part of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. I think there's about 6 stories in this film. His family had lived there and raised their family since 1848. They had a large cattle farm and a general store that was also the post office, named Nellie. It was right in the heart of the valley just below the church, Palmer's Chapel. Uncle Gudger was born in 1909 and he lived to be 102 years old. The family moved out of the valley in or around about 1928 when the Park Service moved them all out, with the exception of his father and little sister who were buried in the Palmer's Chapel Cemetery. Uncle Gudger loved to go back over to the valley every year for homecoming, and he never missed a chance to go back to Cataloochee. He was sure quite a character and loved to tell stories. Always true, he said with a twinkle in his eye. I was reminded by a dear friend that all of these old stories should be saved for future generations. So with the help of many of my cousins and friends, we started going through a lot of old family VHS tapes. We were able to put this project together. All of these stories take place over in Cataloochee, except for one, and I'll tell you a little story. When Uncle Gudger was really young, his father was elected as the High Sheriff of Haywood County. And when he rode his horse to Waynesville to find out the election results, he told his wife that if he lost the election, his plan was to sell his horse, named Old Big Mac was his horse's name, and to walk on home. But if he won the election, he'd need his horse and would just ride home. So the family sat on the porch all evening to watch for him to come into sight so that they would know the election results. And that was in 1910. So anyhow, one story is about a murder case that got a lot of attention here in those days and how their family lived in the jailhouse. We really hope that you enjoy these tales from long ago, and please remember to save your own family stories for future generations. So if you have any distant relatives from Cataloochee, please forward this video to them. It's been my pleasure to head this project up.
Back when my father was sheriff, and Glenn, your daddy was a deputy.
Yeah, a deputy.
Deputy, yeah. And this woman never did prove it, but they tried her for it. She came across from Johnson's Creek, across that mountain over to Delwood, and put this baby about a year old, I guess, in a cave, and then put some big rocks up so it couldn't come out. It's right up above the Queen house there. And so they, your daddy and my daddy was the first ones to find it. They were searching for it. The word got out that the baby was missing, and their suspicion of it being up there, so they found it in this cave. So they brought her to the jail, and we lived in the jail there on Montgomery Street.
It's a real respectable place to live.
Front of the building was the quarters for the sheriff and his family. The back of it was the jail. So they brought this old lady in there, and that first night the word that got out that was going to come in there. This gang of people got together down there at the depot, and they're going to come in there and take her out and lynch her. And my daddy hid the keys up in the chimney. So if they came, they couldn't get it unlocked, you know. Well, they tried her and found her guilty. But she always claimed that she wasn't guilty. And one of the defense that they tried to prove that she wasn't guilty, in that the rocks that rolled up in front of this cave was so big that they didn't think she could handle it. And well, they tried her and sentenced her for life in prison in Raleigh. So my mother and Barry Plott, who was a deputy at that time, got her on the train and took her to Raleigh, to the prison. And as I said, she always claimed she was innocent. So when they got down there, my mother asked her, said, "Now, Nance," they called her Nance Dude, by the way. And she said, "Now, Nance, I'll never see you again. I want you to tell me the truth." She says, "I'm just as innocent as you are." So that's the last that they saw her with them. But about 30 years later, she came back over to Cataloochee. This old lady, she was real old at that time.
She evidently got out of prison.
Yeah, they pardoned her. She was sentenced for life.
I can remember when she got out.
You can?
Yeah.
It's in the early 30s, I think.
Oh, is it that? No, I didn't. No. I don't think I did. But no, I thought she got out not.
Did you see her?
Yeah, I know about Lance. I want you to tell me, what'd she tell over? She got back.
That was it.
Well, what'd she say? Was she guilty? What'd she say then? When she come back to Cataloochee, did she say where
No,
she?
she always claimed she was innocent.
Never did admit to it.
No. Finally was.
Everybody give you attention.
And she lived up a trail there, on that mossy branch above where we lived on Cataloochee. And she finally married a fellow by the name of Claude Valentine. Well, about a year after they were married, she had 7 twins. And she'd come down every morning, about once a week, I'd say, and stop there at our house and drink a cup of coffee. By the time we was having breakfast, then she'd go with her mother on down the hill, down by the chestnut tree, by the big oak, and down by the buggy house, by the cattle scales, by the barn, through the meadow, through Mull Meadow, on out to the post office, do a little mailing, get her, maybe buy her some snuff, and then on back home. So she carried these twins, one on one hip, one on the other one. So a long time before she ever named them. And they got to calling the twins right and left, right and left. One, that's the only way you could tell them apart, because she carried one named right on her right hip and one named left on her left. My daddy told her one day, he said, "You ought to change those names." Said, "Somebody think you're calling this one right, and they might think the other one's wrong." So Daddy said, "Well, now, you know, we got our horses trained. We want them to go to the right. We call them G, say G. And if we wanted to go to the left, we could say Haw." So why don't you just name those babies G and Haw? That one on the right would be G, and that one on the left would be Haw. So she did, G and Haw. Well, as I say, she'd come down about once a week, carrying those twins, G and Haw, on her hip. She came in one morning and we heard a big confusion. I don't think I was there then, but so they told me. And she came in all excited and fluttered and trying to talk and pointing up the trail. Couldn't say a word, she was so excited. But she didn't have G and Haw. First time she'd ever didn't have G and Haw. So finally I got up there and said she couldn't tell anything. Got up there and my grandmother looked up there, and there was that groundhog. The groundhog was hung up in the fence. He had a great big bulge about the size of G on one side, and on the other side was a bulge about the size of Haw. And it couldn't go either way with G and Haw, one on the side of the fence, hung up in this fence, one on the other.
How's your right?
There's a rattlesnake hung in the fence, wasn't it, Gudger?
Yeah.
Not the groundhog.
What?
There's a rattlesnake hung in the fence.
Yeah, excuse me, groundhog, rattlesnake was hung in the fence. Of course. I get so excited about this, you know. I'm not excited about as Mighty Valentine was when she was trying to show that groundhog up there surging back and forth with our great big bulls on one side, about the size of a G, and another bull's on the other side, about the size of a hawk, couldn't go either way, hung up in the fence. And so looked up there and saw that, you know. The grandmother said, Lord have mercy. Said that groundhog swallowed G in the hog. And so Molly, she was still pretty excited. She got so excited she fainted. And then my grandma fainted. And having a terrible time around there. And of course, finally, Molly came to, and she told us, well, they said they swallowed G in the hole, that rattlesnake swallowed G in the hole. Well, she said, I didn't bring them today. Well, that eased that, but they said, well, these two groundhogs up there in the orchard were named Jack and Jill. So someone said, well, they just swallowed that rattlesnake that swallowed Jack and Jill. And with that, Sister Hattie, she started crying because there's her pet. And so then they got Grandma revived, and Molly had come through by that time, and of course told them that she didn't bring G in the hall that day. So told my daddy got the shotgun, but just before that though, this rattlesnake racing around this picket fence so bad, surging back and forth, and finally just picked up a section of the fence and carried off down the hill out of sight. With the groundhogs in him, you know. My daddy got the shotgun, told Glenn, your daddy, give you a shell here, one shot, said you're pretty good, go down there and shoot that snake in the head. So he went off over the hill there out the side with a shotgun, one shell. Which made the other boom! And I said, well, he got him. And just another minute or two, here come another boom! Well, I said, we just had one shell. And so about that time, Glenn came back up and carried that old shotgun. And Daddy says, what in the world went on down there? He said, you just had one shell and I heard two shots. Oh, Glenn said, no, I didn't shoot at all. Said, what you heard was one groundhog, got so tight in that rattlesnake till it just exploded. Boom! And said on the other end of the rattlesnake, it then went boom. And said those groundhogs came out of there and went about 10 feet in the air and hit the ground a-running. If anything I like is true stories. I don't like to exaggerate a bit. But someone had the question about whether there's any panthers used to be on Cataloochee or not, so I tell this just to verify that they were panthers over there at one time. My grandmother decided one day that she would go and pick some blackberries about a mile up from the house, in the pasture. And she asked my granddad, said, Andy said, go with me. We'll go up here and pick some blackberries. And Andy said, no, he had been coon hunting the night before and he's tired. He said, no, I'm going to take a nap. You go, if you want to pick blackberries, you go ahead. So she went up there and started picking blackberries, but she hadn't been there very long. And, but to tell you this though, that back in those times they wore long dresses and had maybe 2 or 3 petticoats, long petticoats underneath them, and a bonnet. and that's the way she was dressed. But she hadn't been there very long. She looked up there on the tree, and a big limb ran out like that, and there was that great big old panther sitting up there. He was all squatted down, you know, like a big cat. You know how a cat squats when you're about to... Yeah, panther. They're big cats, what they are. But they have the nature of a cat, and he's all squatted down there just ready to jump, you know. And he's going to jump on Grandma. So Grandma threw them bucket of blackberries down that she picked and took off towards the home about a mile. And when she did, that panther took a jump down, but didn't get to her, but he took after her. But she hadn't gone very far till the bonnet came off. And that panther, he grabbed that bonnet and stopped, you know, and took that bonnet and just turned it all to pieces. All the strong shoulders too, here they are. And they turned the bonnet all to pieces, you know. Well, that gave Grandma a little running room. She got a little bit ahead. But the panther was, Grandma was pretty fast, but that panther was still faster. So that panther began to catch up to her again. So she jerked off a piece of clothing. Well, them dresses, or outer dress, and threw it down. Well, that panther got up to that, and he grabbed that old piece of dress, you know, and all that time Grandma was running. Grandma got a little farther ahead that time. But it wasn't long that the panther got tore up that petticoat, or dress, whatever it was, and was about to catch up to her again. So she jerked off another petticoat. So there again, that old panther grabbed that thing, take those big claws, you know, and shut it apart like that, and just same time, what if it caught Grandma going through like that? Well, maybe it did, but we're going to see. And, so that went on for quite a while, and every time you get close, she'd pull off a petticoat, a piece of clothing or something. And finally, she got just right to the door of the house. And she jumped in the door, and that panther was right just ready to take a hold of her, but she slammed that door right in that panther's face. Of course, when she slammed that door, that woke Grandpa up. He raised up, said, "Charlotte, what in the world do you mean? Coming in here like this, stark naked?"
It's a little better.
The schoolhouse got on fire one day, and what it went off, as spark came out from the chimney, set the roof down. And it so happened that they were having a auction sale right near there, and the word got out, and the people, all this crowd that's down there by on Cataloochee was there, I guess. And they came over there and got some of the buckets that they carried their lunch in, and went out the creek and got water, and went up in the attic and put the fire out. It burned a hole in the roof, that's so big. Well, Jenny Messer was teaching school at that time, and of course that excited her quite a bit. And so a few days after that, it's a sunshiny day, and I happened to be sitting right by the stove. The stove was a wood burning stove, of course, and the stove pipe went up and it connected with the chimney right up to the roof. And I looked up the side of the Jim in like the sun was shining up there, and I said, "Looks to me like there's a fire up there." And so I excited Jenny Messrs. And she had already had it planned. There was a thing called fire again, what she was going to do. So she had a ladder that's outside. She ran out there and got the ladder and stuck it up through the hole in the ceiling, big high ceiling, but the ladder wouldn't reach. And she told me to go up in there. So Lord, of course, I'd seen it. He said, we'll get your water to you. And during the meantime, she held all these kids into their lunch fields out and was bringing water in from the creek. And she said, "Well, we'll get the water to you. You go up there and put that fire out." So I went up in there and got up in there. I couldn't see any fire. I said, "There's no fire up here." I said, "I don't see a sign of any fire." And by that time they had the water there. She said, "Pour water." Pour water. Well, I said, "There's no fire up here." She said, "Pour water." I said, "Well, hand the water to me." They started handing us, we know how to bucket, arcade, call it, all the way to the creek, facing one to the other. So I just sold water east and west. I'd get a bucket, I'd throw it, you know. And of course, water all came down through the ceiling, all the desks and books and everything, all his office mesh, everything. So finally I told her, I said, "I believe I got the fire out." When I came down, she said, "Well, I'm not so sure you got that fire out." I said, "Yes, I got it out." But she says, "I'm going up in there and see." So she went up there, and instead of walking around on those joists or what it was across there, she started walking on the boards that's nailed to the joist to the ceiling. First thing I know, here came a big lake. She walked up, got that one out, she walked out there a little further and back at another lake. Well, it ended up, not only tore up the ceiling with her walking on the top, but the schoolhouse was a mess. So we all got to go home. And she stayed and cleaned up that. I didn't exaggerate on that. That was what happened.
That's true.
That's a true story.
The one thing he likes is a true story.
Nothing but the truth.
Now tell about when the eagle came.
The what?
The eagle.
I don't know that story. Never mentioned it. All I know is one time my mother was sitting in the schoolhouse and this hawk flew in the window through the glass and grabbed my mother just by the leg like that with his claws. So that makes me think about an owl one time caught a chicken and carried on up there from the house a little way and just ate part of it. So Dr. Don Connor, who was staying in our house at the time, he and my daddy went up there and they set a trap with that owl. They figured, well, he'd come back next night. And so the following day after that night, they went back up there and sure enough, there that old owl was right there by the chicken in that trap. And so John Connor, old man, he walked up to that owl, took his head, took his fist right in that owl's face like that. He says, "What did you cut our chicken for?" So the owl reached up, just had one foot in the trap, reached up with that other foot, wham, right through there like that. Two big long claws. He turned up to my dad. He called my dad named William, but he called him Willem. He said, Lord God Almighty, Willem, take it loose, take it loose. Shake your fist in the house, say. Oh, Bolton. Well, this will be the rice, right? Okay?
Well, maybe.
Now, this is a true story. Now, no joking. You know, we always took our cattle out to the Lost Bottom, Beach Ridge, warm coals. My daddy had a 6-inch very cold warm coals at the head of the Cataloochee Creek, about 8 miles from where we kept the cattle during the winter time. So we didn't have a whole lot of feed, and feed we used to run pretty short. We'd take them out to the woods just as early as we could, just as soon as we thought they could make it in the woods. And we had one old cow, big old strawberry roan, raw bone, short-horn Durham breed. She's a little bigger than the rest of the cows. And we, my daddy went over, always had to put a bell on the cattle. We took off that turn of the woods so we could find them when we went out had to go out so often to give them salt. And he went over to Tennessee somewhere, I think Johnson City or one of those towns, near towns over there. The fellow over there had a blacksmith, and he made a cowbell. And it was unusually big. And this old Balsam, we don't know Balsam, because she's bigger than the rest of them. She was sort of a leader of the herd. And this old bell, you could hear it for miles, it seemed like. It had a real deep boom, boom, boom tune to it. And so took it and put it on old Balsam, and a few days before I was going to take them out to the woods. And she didn't like it at all, and she'd slang her head, you know, no. But as you know, I was born and raised on Cataloochee, which is now part of the Great Smokey Mountain National Park. The park came in and took it over about 1934. And prior to that time, I was living there and lived for over there until the park took it over, and then we moved out. But our primary income was from cattle. We raised cattle, and if anything should happen to our cattle, well then we'd really be in mad, because our income that was primarily our income. As this story is, I want to tell you about a cow, a strawberry roan cow, and her name was Balsam. Now, we grew hay and corn in the summertime to feed our cows in the winter. In the winter, we was taken out to graze on the free range on the headwaters of Cataloochee. So a big area, covers several, quite a few acres, 1,000 acres. And every spring, we would take the cattle out to graze over that area in the summer months, And then in the early fall, we'd go out and bring them back in and feed them the hay and corn that we had grown during the summer. Very often we'd go out to the range and round up the cattle and see how they were getting along and salt them. Always gave them a little salt. And it was sometimes pretty hard to find them out on that range. But to help find them, we'd always put a bell on one cow, and so if we wouldn't be able to find them if we didn't have a bell on some of the time. So to get a bell, my father had heard about over in Tennessee that blacksmith over there had got quite had been known quite a bit about making cowbells. So he gave word to have that bell to make one and make a big one because be able to hear it quite a bit. So when he got that bell, it was outstanding. There never had been a bell that could be heard as far as that bell. It was a big bell, but it wasn't heavy according to its size. But what a tone it had. It had a sort of a bass tone, and that you could hear it seem like forever. And so Balsam she was a big roan bone cow and big, so we put this bell on Balsam, and we put in order. And by the way, John, I don't mean John, Kim. We had a leather strap and laced it up with groundhog string. The reason I mentioned John just gave me Kim. Please excuse me for getting mixed up.
It's the right family.
But here's my groundhog string that John just gave me tonight. Shoestring.
What are you going to do with it?
I'm going to lace my shoes with it.
All right.
It's just like the one we put on Balsam on her to fasten the leather hold around her neck to hold the bell. It's just like this, except ones we had hairs on them. Well, I better get on with the story. As I said before, I believe it. In the springtime, we would take our cattle out to the range, and that was a big day when we got all the cattle rounded up to go out. So it became a real unusually warm spring, real early, and vegetation started coming out, and we were getting short on feed. And my father said, we're getting short on feed, and it's going to turn some warm, and vegetation will start coming out. Said, I believe we can take our cattle out to the range. So we we rounded them up. I think there's about 50 of them. And we got them in the barn lot and fed them real good that night. And then ready to start out early next morning. And my father was riding a big black horse named Dutch, and I was riding a white horse named Dolly. And Dolly was fiery and little, she was very sensitive to any unusual sounds. Then we had a couple of mules that got some help to, they was going to ride that mules. One mule was named let's see, what was those names? Just a moment. Anyway, I'll come to them in a minute. Anyway, we took those, some people helping us, and they rode those mules. So we had the 4 horses, 2 horses and 2 mules. One of the horses, one of the mules' name was Zeke, and it sounded like hide and seek, but it wasn't hide and seek. It was a name similar to that. I forget things. So we had to got up real early, and just at daylight we started out to take the cattle out to the range. And it's a distance of about 8 miles we had to go, so we wanted to really get started early. So someone said go out and open, on the upper side of the meadow was the gate where we would go out. Someone said go out and open the gate, and so someone went and tried to open the gate, and then the latch on it got stuck. So took quite a bit of time, finally got the gate open. And so we took them through the gate, turned up the road, old Balsam out in front. And you could hear that bell rounding off from one side of the valley to the other. And as we went out the gate, we passed by Nellie post office, and at this store there, my folks, the country store operated. And the next place of note we passed was the post office spring, it was named. And next thing, and by the way, this road that we were traveling was just a one narrow road, just for one way, and we met two wagons had met. One would have to find a place to pull out to pass. And so next place we passed was Palmer Chapel Methodist Church, and next we came to where Indian Creek and Caldwell Fork, Woody Creek merged to form Cataloochee Creek. But we turned up Indian Creek, and the next place we came to was Palmer's house. And they had heard us coming at least a mile down the road with that bell going. Old Balsam out in front, and the rest of the cattle were following. And we got up to Thomas Palmer's house, and he had two grown sons. One was named Chauncey, and one was named Verlin. And so they came, and they was going to go with us to help us with the cattle, especially one place where we had to go, which I'll tell you later. See, I'm trying to keep you, keep you wondering what's going to happen. And Chauncey said, Chauncey and Verlin, they were grown sons of Thomas. So they came out to help us, and they were going to go with us all the way from there on. Chauncey came out with a big old black snake whip. I'm pretty sure most of you know what a black snake whip is. It's made out of leather, big at one end, sliced and points off at another, at the other end with a cracker on it. He snapped that rake. Well, by the way, Chauncey claimed to be awful good with that whip. I never had seen him do it, but he claimed he could knock a fly off of a whip of a hip of a horse without touching the horse. I couldn't believe that. But he cracked that whip, and I don't know, as I told you before, Dolly was very sensitive to sounds, unusual sounds. And I don't know where she went or how much, how far, but and I went up in the air, and when I came down, Dolly wasn't there. And I hit the ground with a thud. But she had thrown me before, so I was get more or less used to it. My father said it's all right to have a horse throw you, but to fall off of a horse, that was ridiculous. But I claim that she threw me. I didn't fall off. Well, we moved on. The next place, I got back on Dolly, and we moved on, and with Balsam out in front. And the next place we passed of note, I guess, was the grist mill that my grandfather Jesse had built. And then we passed the mill, the mill dam, the dam that dammed up the water to operate the water mill. Then we passed the mill hill, went around the mill bluff, past the Sutton patch, and we came off, turned off the road that went up to the Connor place where Carl Sutton lived at one time. And we came to Quick George Palmer's place. And he had a lot of children, all ages and all sizes. And they'd heard us come from at least a mile from that bell. And they were all out to see the cattle. It was just a big day when you take the cattle to the range. I guess it may be big as some of these parades that they have up north in the wintertime. Mesas wanted to have such a big parade, something like that. I mean, it meant a lot to children to see all that many cattle and hear that bell. So they gathered in with us, and they were going to help us at this place where it was so hard to get through. And and we passed over Davidson Branch there, and then we passed up to the Indian Creek swimming hole where we'd go in swimming sometimes. And then the gold mine, a man come in there one time and thought he had found gold. He dug a big hole in the side of the hill up there, but there wasn't enough gold. Found some gold, but it wasn't enough to pay. But we passed that. Then we passed the Little Meadow. See, all this along the side of Indian Creek. And then we passed the Poison Cove. And then we came to Turkey George Palmer's house. As you recall, we had passed out just past another George Palmer. His name was Creek George. And this one, this now got to was Turkey George Palmer. And he had not either, I think about 12 children. There's all sizes. And they came out. And we went by Turkey George's hog. Where he had his hogs penned up. And then we went into across, came to Pretty Hollow Creek. My father said, don't rush them through here, let them drink all the water that they want, because we will not come to any more water yet until we get to Lost Bottom. And we went about 25, 30 yards, I guess, till we came to what we call Butt Mountain. It was a ridge that came off and it just came down like that. It had Indian Creek on one side and Pretty Hollow Creek on the other, and the two creeks came together, and this ridge was divided into two creeks, and it came to a point. It's very steep. So that was going to be a big problem, getting those cattle up that ridge. There was just one trail right in the center of the ridge to go up, and it's very steep. And it was hard to get the cattle started up that mountain, up that ridge. They wanted to go off to the left, to the right, where it wasn't steep. And so we got them all around there, and we had Palmer's folks, we had Creek George's folks, we had Turkey George's folks, all of them Palmers, and all the made a big circle to force those cattle up to go up that ridge. Well, they didn't want to go. And Johnson was running, everybody's hollering, hey, hey, because that's what you say when you want a cow to move. They don't move from you. Johnson running around cracking that whip, and the cattle I guess several minutes we that effort, and the cattle were getting very restless. And my father said, hold on, let's stop just a few minutes. It's these cattle, they're getting all restless. And they may stampede, and they may come right back over, run over the top of us. Let's just stop and be quiet for a little while. So we stopped. And everything was still. And the cattle quieted down. And now I want you to get this. I noticed old Boston. She was going around and all the way around, and she stopped on one cow, calf, whatever. And then she'd go to another, all around. And she circulated down and got pretty close to most all of them. Now, I don't know if she was talking or not. But apparently she was telling them, I've been here before, and we're going to have to go up that ridge, and you can follow me. Well, that's what happened. And without us even moving to rush them, she started up that ridge. Old Boston. And here they went right after, without any effort. Now, I don't know whether you believe cattle and other animals can talk or have a sign, some way of talking, but I believe she was telling them, I've been here before, and I know we got to go. So you follow me. So we went, it wasn't too far up there till that ridge been leveled out a little bit. But we still had about 5 miles to go. And there wasn't much happening during that time. It's just one trail. And as I say, Boston was always out in front. But a strange thing happened, and I don't know yet what it was. We were going along this ridge way back in there. We were miles from the nearest house. And by the road, they ended there at Turkey, Georgia, just before it started up this steep place. And all of us there, from there on, was just a single trail, no road. And, but this thing that I haven't been able to figure out. We were way back in there, miles from anybody living, complete wilderness, way off to the right, down deep in a cove. There was a sound coming up. And I don't know what it was. But it sounded like somebody chopping with an axe. And we heard that for several times, chomp, 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 just like this is cutting axe, cutting something. And so Chauncey hollered out, "Hey!" just loud as he could holler. Like you go and holler at the cattle, That sound stopped immediately. Now what that was, your guess is as good as mine. I never heard it before, never heard it again. So, I won't tell you, but I will travel. We had a few miles yet to go, so I'll skip over to that. Wasn't anything happened too much. We had to go down another ridge though before we got to where we were going. But it wasn't near steep like the one we had to come up. But we went down into that ridge. into a place called Lost Bottom. Now, it was strange that way back in there, that far, about 8 miles from where we lived, and it was at least 5 miles from anybody lived, was some level land, and it consisted of I'd say about 5 acres, and so it was really lost, I guess, and they called it the Lost Bottom. And the creek that ran by it was called Lost Bottom Creek. So we crossed Lost Bottom Creek there and went into a place where my father always took his cattle, and it was called Warm Coves. This vegetation seemed to come out a little earlier in that section, in that cove, than in any other places. Well, we took him over there, and my father said, well, now, we'll leave him here. This is where we're going, of course. So we left him, and we came on back home, and during the time that we got back to where we went up Butt Mountain there, that steep place, it had rain, and it was sort of soggy and wet, and there's leaves, wet leaves, and it was so steep. I'll just give you an idea how steep it was. That Dolly, the horse that I was riding, Dolly, she started slipping, and she put her 4 feet out in front like that and just slid all the way down that. So we got home just a little after dark. And as I said, it had been such unusually warm weather. And in about a week, it turned cold and awfully snow that we had ever had. And then it snowed for I'd say at least a foot deep, or maybe more, and in some places 2 feet, and then froze hard. I mean hard. And of course, when that happened, then the cattle couldn't graze. You know, cattle will take their nose and scrape away the snow and get vegetation, but it was so deep and hard they couldn't do it. And my father became, of course, very much worried. He said those cattle said that they'll freeze and starve to death. And not only that, that was our income. If that happened, we would maybe not have much to eat next year. Right? So it does. And he said, some way could we get feed to them? No, we just can't get up Butt Mountain with that a foot of snow frozen like it was. So and anyway, couldn't get up, especially couldn't carry any feed up to get to them. And that went on, I guess, for about 2 days. And my father he'd get up early and start walking the floor and worrying about what something we could do. It hadn't warmed up one bit, still cold. Unusually cold, never had been that cold before, especially that time of year. So they had this unusually warm weather, took them out, turned cold, we couldn't bring them back. So he's out on the porch, he still hadn't got daylight. And he heard a bell. way off in the distance, a mile or more. Then he thought about it, so that's some of the my neighbors' cows up there. They turned theirs out. If it had free range, they could turn them out in the road or anywhere. So he came on back in the house and we talked about it and said, you know, we went back out again a little later and the bells a little louder. It got a little louder. And he says, that sounded like Boston's bell. No, couldn't be. He come back in the house again. He went, and then she had walked on the floor. He went back out again, and the bell was still loud. So it was coming our way. And then it finally got real loud, and it was real close. And he said, you know, that just sounds like Boston's bell. No, it couldn't be. But all the, as I said, it wasn't quite daylight. But it began to clear up, and through the early dawn, just barely could look over across the meadow. And what do you think was there? There was Balsam. This is 50 head of cattle around her. She had brought them in. She had saved the herd. Been watching a lot of these Westerners, and I really like when they have those gunfights, fast draws. So I started practicing it. And I don't want to brag too much, but my dad thought it looked pretty good. And I don't have my pistol. If I get that high hat, that cowboy hat in there,
in there, Jessica.
but I better not, I might shoot myself in the leg. Well, you have to wear the hat sort of, you know. And, so I without a pistol, I just go through the motions. What I'll do now, is I'll come back down and I'll twirl it 3 times back in the holster. I want you all get where you can see the pistol on the hand, as the case might be, because it's going to be pretty fast. And if you're not looking real good, you won't see it. So let me get all set. And everybody do that quiet, because I've got to concentrate. This little thing I threw out concentration, and I just shoot myself in the leg, sure enough. But I'll go through the motion again. I come out of the holster, and I'll fire, and I come back, I'll twirl it 3 times, back in the holster.
I know this. Now, how much do I bake it on?
Now,
What temperature?
what I'll do now,
50 minutes. Okay. Okay,
okay,
know.
I count 3. And at the count of 3,
I watch it.
Mark will say fire. And that's when I'll fire. All right, all set. Real quiet. Got the hound to come. 1, 2, 3.
Fire.
Would you like to see it again?
Boy, that was bad.
lightning, I'll tell you. It's good.
I live way back over the mountain in Cataloochee, what is now part of the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. And right down, not far out from my house, the creek run by. There's a great big pool of water there. Now, when I was a boy, I'd go out there, throw some breadcrumbs in there, feed the fish. They'd come up and it's pretty wild for us, but we got still a tamer. But there's one great big one, he stayed way back down there. And but he kept coming a little closer, a little closer. Finally, he came up so close because I could reach down and rub him on the stomach. And boy, he liked that, you know. He'd look up and grin at me. Well, I kept doing that several times. And one time I started back to the house and I noticed he followed me out on the bank a little way. And then he ran and jumped back in the creek. Well, the next time, he came a little bit farther. About the third or fourth time, he followed me all the way to the house. Well, we kept him around the house there for a pet. And when we had company, we go to eat, we had a special chair built for him. And had a put a napkin around his neck. And strangers come in and visit us. It seems so, couldn't understand it, but it seemed strange to them to see us fish just sitting up to the table. Well, we'd talk, he didn't have, you know, he just had little fins here and didn't have any hands particularly. We'd toss the fish, the food to him, he'd catch it and go down and pour it down. And he's always proud after soup, you know, like he's saying thank you. But when he couldn't talk, so we called him Dummy, because that foolish face never did learn to talk.
A cup of coffee.
And when you go to Sunday school or church, he'd always follow us along. And you know, fish don't have legs, but he has a tail. And the way he'd walk, he'd bend his tail down like that, and then he'd jump and pull his tail up like that, and that would raise him up, you know. He'd get to swing like that, you know, and then they'd like that. Now, I'll see, Mark, let's see if you can do that. Chase. Yeah, I believe you can too. Now that's all good. Here we go. Let's try it one more time. Okay, Mark. Here we go. Nice way. Well, we went to Sunday school and said which class was going to go in, the boys or the girls class. Well, I didn't know what to say because I didn't know whether it was a boy or girl. But I'd always spoke to him as a he. But I say, put him in the boys' class. Well, he went in the boys' class, and he didn't like it in there. So he came back out and went in the girls' class. So I assumed by that maybe he just liked the girls. What I think that was. Well, everywhere I'd go, he'd follow me, and going up to my grandma's house one day. We came out, went across the meadow from my house, out to the storehouse. My folks had a store there. Through the gate, went up by the spring, up by the church, Farmer's Chapel, on up into this football across there. Now, you know what a football is? That's something that across the creek that you walk across on it. This one has some planks nailed on it. Some of those planks that got loose. And so we just walked along and he jumped along like that. And he just followed me. I stepped on the other one of those planks and it kind of flew up and hit that fish and threw him over in the creek. And before I could get down in there and get him out, he drowned. Well, that's a kind of sad story. But I tell you, there's a sequel to it. I don't think these other folks have ever heard it before. But I've taken a bunch of young folks over to Cataloochee there and told them that story. They were from one class over in Nashville. Well, they got a letter from old Dummy. And he said, you know, that rascal Gudger thought I drowned him, but then I didn't. And he said, what happened? The other fish saw me floating off down the creek, and they called 911, and here comes the siren squeaking and the carrying on, and they got me out there and gave me artificial respiration, pumped water into me, not out of me, and he said, you know, I want to tell you young folks, that rascal Gudger thought I was drowned, but said I'm still over here swimming around in this big hole of water right where I used to be. And says, anytime you come back over here now, be sure and come by and see me. And so anytime that your folks go to take you over there, maybe on the homecoming, we go down to that big hole of water and we'll see old Dummy. Okay?